Governor Abbott, thank you for taking the time.
Sure, my pleasure.
Let's talk about abortion.
Okay.
New polling shows only 11% of Texans support a ban on abortion with no exceptions for rape and incest. What do you say to the 89% of Texans in this poll who disagree with you?
Well, I'll answer that question, but first I'll also point out polling also shows that the extreme position that Beto O'Rourke has taken is disliked just as much. Beto's position is that he's not only in favor of abortion of a fully developed child 1 second before that child is born. He's even against requiring doctors to provide medical care for a child who survives an abortion. He's for unlimited abortion at taxpayer expense. But what I would say to the public about the laws that were passed by the Texas legislature is that it is a demonstration of a support for life, protecting the life of the mother, as well as protecting the life of the child. But I have to point out, we believe in providing unprecedented support for those mothers. Let me give you some quick examples. We are providing the Alternatives to Abortion program at a record amount. Has increased about 800% since I've been governor. We want to make adoption easier and cheaper. We increased funding for prenatal and postpartum care, and we provided a record amount of money for the women's health programs to help women who are going through these pregnancies and the years after that.
Yeah, so let me ask you, this actually was asked in your news conference. I'll go back to it. Last year, when you were criticized for having an abortion law with no exceptions for rape and incest, you said, quote, back then, the #1 goal in the state of Texas is to eliminate rape. That is admirable, Governor, but hardly possible.
Well, if we don't try to eliminate rape, we're making mistakes. Surely we can all agree that we should do all that we possibly can to eliminate rape. And let's talk again about the things that I have done, because I've taken concrete steps that have led to a reduction in rapes. #1 is I signed a law that eliminated the rape kit test backlog at the Texas Department of Public Safety, and DPS is now processing all rape kits within the time required by law. That helps us have the evidence that we need to arrest and prosecute rapists. And then in addition to that, I also signed laws to prevent cities from defunding the police and laws to reform the bail policies, like the disastrous bail policies here in Harris County. Because again, as I have pointed out, in each of the last 3 years, there have been more than 300 women in Harris County who were sexually assaulted by someone who was let out on bail. If those bail laws had just been enforced, that would be approximately 1,000 women who would not have been sexually assaulted. We have to have judges who are going to enforce the laws that we pass in order for us to make sure that we can keep rapists behind bars.
You talk about getting greater speed on rape kits tested. You talk about making sure law enforcement is funded. That's all after the fact, Governor. You said last year, eliminate rape. It just seems a very bold statement that's not even possible.
Well, again, let's go over this fact that I just mentioned. If Harris County judges were enforcing the law and keeping rapists off the streets as opposed to releasing them on bail, that alone would mean that more than 1,000 women over the past 3 years, just in Houston, Texas alone, would not have been victims of sexual assault. So you got to start somewhere, and imposing tough bail for dangerous criminals is a great place to start.
Are you concerned, Governor, that your stance on abortion will drive more women and younger voters to the polls to vote against you?
First, as we gather today, women are supporting me just as much as they are supporting Beto. Second, the more that women learn, the more Texans learn about the extreme policies of Beto on abortion, where he is for abortion of a fully developed child to the last second before that child is born, and is against a doctor providing medical care to a child who survives an abortion. People will be appalled about that.
Let me switch gears to Uvalde. I interviewed you on July 27th, asked you about releasing body cam footage from DPS troopers at Robb Elementary in Uvalde. You said it's in the public interest, should be soon as possible, has not happened yet. Why not?
So you're talking about the body cam?
Yes.
And so remind me timing-wise, if you would, when in relation to that interview was the camera information released about what was going on in the Uvalde school?
So we talked on July 27th. Body cam footage had been released from Uvalde, I think, police, but we're still waiting on body cam from DPS.
Right. So, well, I mean, I know this is messing up your interview, but as I understand it, body cam information has not been released from Uvalde police. And I'm trying to figure out time-wise in our conversation, what had been released that showed, when had it been released that showed what was going on in the school? Had that been released when you and I spoke?
Yes.
Okay. So understanding that, so when you and I spoke last, the cameras inside the school, that information had been released so people could see what happened inside the school. As I understand it, the reason why DPS as well as other law enforcement have not provided the body cam information is at the request of the district attorney. There was actually a court hearing on that matter a few weeks ago where people who were requesting the information to be released took before a judge their claim, and based upon the district attorney's testimony, the court judge ruled that information did not have to be released at this time. But I still support that information being released as soon as possible, because it's important for everyone to know exactly what happened second by second. It's important for us to know what happened to determine the extent to which, if any, that any Texas law enforcement officer did anything that violated any standard.
One final question. The head of DPS, Steve McCraw, told a Senate committee in June the state police could not have taken control of the response in Uvalde. Just the other day in an interview, he said he wished they had taken control. Did DPS fail that day?
So the protocol in place at the time was the Columbine protocol, and that required, first of all, having an incident commander. In this case, the incident commander was the Uvalde school police chief. And the way that protocol works is he is the incident commander until he relinquishes that command to someone else. And he never relinquished that command. And so technically, DPS may have been following the book. However, what Director McCraw is looking at is whether or not their law enforcement officers from DPS should have actually insisted on doing something different than what Pete Arredondo was saying. And that investigation continues. That investigation is in part what has led to investigations being conducted against 5 DPS officers and 2 of them being suspended at this point in time.
Governor, it boggles the mind, and I'm sure you've thought about this, 77 minutes before the gunman was taken down. 77 minutes.
Completely unacceptable, complete violation of the standards that we have in place in this state. Contrary to what everybody has known for years of what has to be done. It's unacceptable, and there must be accountability for it. DPS is seeking their accountability. Pete Arredondo has already faced accountability. Others will face accountability for standing around and doing nothing.
Governor, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Awesome.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hope we'll do it again for like longer.
Yeah.